My name is Patty. On behalf of the Leafy Doc team, I want to welcome all of you to our second webinar session, Can Cannabis Help Control Your Blood Sugar? At the end of this webinar, we will send out a survey for any feedback, as this is a new program and we're constantly trying to improve it. For those of you that participate in the survey, we will randomly be raffling off an Amazon gift card as a thank you for your participation. So keep an eye out for the survey link in your inboxes, probably about 30 minutes or so after the conclusion of this webinar. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Maria. She is one of our cannabis health coaches who's been working as a registered dietitian for the past 15 years. She's also completed several medical cannabis certifications, and she will be spearheading this webinar session for you all today. Thank you, Maria. I will turn things over to you now.
Thank you, Patty. So this is a really interesting topic. I was excited to look into this and all of the new research that's been coming out. And that's one of the areas that I think is really useful to take a look at, is just how much research we're going to be seeing in the next couple of years, I'm sure. But what I wanted to start on was just looking at what we already know. So there's lots of unknowns about cannabis and blood sugar. But to first review some of the known factors that contribute to blood sugar values. Some of the foods that we eat are well known to affect our blood sugar, either in keeping it neutral or increasing it, or lifestyle. There's also lots of things that can reduce blood sugar or increase it. And then, of course, medication. So just to kind of start off on as a review of well-known trends, blood sugar. All humans have blood sugar. So our blood glucose is what is the blood sugar at that moment in time. So a glucose value reading, if you take a finger stick and you check your blood sugar, that will tell you your glucose value. That glucose value, what is considered normal, listed on the chart, is from 80 to 100. So that's fasting. So that would be after the longest period of rest. So someone would wake up from their longest period of rest, and before eating anything, check their blood sugar. When they check their blood sugar, a normal reading would be about 80 to 100. If it were a higher rate than that, then the blood sugar might be showing some impairment or some diabetic values based on what your doctor says. So the other value that's really helpful for knowing what is normal blood sugar values is after eating. So that's called postprandial. So postprandial blood sugar readings is about 2 hours after eating. The blood sugar would be checked, and ideally it would be for a normal range, 120 to 140, depending on other medical issues. The doctors can recommend something higher than that, but those are considered somewhat of the typical values that you would be looking for blood sugar. And the factors that influence those values are food, lifestyle, and medication. So we'll be talking a little bit more about what specifically in food is going to influence blood sugar. So if you're looking at a food label, there's going to be information about the serving size, which is listed at the top of the label. And the chart here on the food label that's listed here, it has the serving size as a half a cup. And then the other portion of the label is the total carbohydrates and the lists of how many grams are in that food. So generally speaking, ideally, each person would know how many grams of carbohydrates they would need per day based on their activity level, their height, weight, and other factors. So knowing what is a normal blood sugar value for the individual, as well as knowing about how many grams of carbohydrates to have per day, is very, very helpful. Also, the types of carbohydrates that are consumed can have a really big difference on blood sugar. So I put the hill and the mountain there to illustrate how blood sugar can be affected based on the type of food. So the picture is illustrating a apple. versus some Cheetos. So basically, similar to that, I've got some ramen noodles here, which would be like Cheetos. Those are a simple carbohydrate. So consuming them would have the blood sugar go up quickly and come down quickly, much like a mountain. So while the same amount of carbohydrate might be similar in an apple, the way that that affects our blood sugar is totally different. It goes up more gradually and it comes down more gradually, which is easier for our bodies to process. So the difference between a complex carbohydrate and a simple carbohydrate is processing as well as fiber. So foods that are unprocessed, such as this is like the apple illustration or just some beans, those are the unprocessed carbohydrates, and they do have an impact on blood sugar, but it's less high and is dispersed over more time. So those are a couple of things about food that can make a difference. And of course, there's foods that don't have any impact on blood sugar whatsoever. So carbohydrates, knowing the amount that is recommended for you is important so that you know what to aim for. Knowing the amount of blood sugar that's considered normal that we just reviewed, that's really helpful to know how to balance blood sugar. And then the foods that don't impact blood sugar or have minimal impact on blood sugar are non-starchy vegetables. So, for example, things like salad or greens, um, and also proteins. So, there's different types of protein that can, um, or protein in general doesn't have this carbohydrates, so it doesn't affect the blood sugar the same that carbohydrates do. Um, so, other factors that influence blood sugar are definitely physical activity. So, physical activity is one of the things that contributes to good blood sugar control. Um, so, an active lifestyle, because I wanted to define that a little bit. An active lifestyle is generally 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity, and that would be anything that increases the heart rate, as well as 2 days per week of muscle strength building. And that's an activity that makes your muscles work harder than normal. So those are two things that would say that that is an active lifestyle, having about 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise, as well as 2 days per week of strength building. A sedentary lifestyle contributes to poor blood sugar control and less opportunity for blood sugar to be burned during physical activity. And that is generally less than less than 6,000 steps per day is generally considered a sedentary lifestyle. So, with that in mind, there's a lot of medications that can impact blood sugar. So, and before I move on, there's actually certainly hypoglycemia, which is when blood sugar is too low. So sometimes it is possible to have your blood sugar go too low, which can also be dangerous. So when we were looking at the chart with the ranges of normal, that's what you would want to be aiming for. There's several studies that have come out. I think one of the largest and most interesting to me was the one that was from 2022. That was from the Texas A&M School of Public Health, and they did a data analysis of over 15,000 people. And they found that female cannabis consumers who consume substantial amounts of cannabis had a lower incidence of diabetes than females with no or little cannabis use. And then in 2016, Diabetes Care published that the THC presents a new therapeutic option for glycemic control for individuals with diabetes type 2. So there's some promising research. Definitely more needs to be done. There have been a few studies that have shown some concern as well. There was one that showed that there was a higher risk for hemoglobin A1C to be higher because of swings in the blood sugar. So the A1C is a value that is calculated of what blood sugar runs over a 3 to 6 month period. And so looking at glucose, which is the amount of blood sugar that's taken at that exact moment in time, and using that information together with the A1C, it provides a clearer picture of what the blood sugar is running on an average. So there's definitely room for more information and more research to be done around this topic, as well as the CBD. There's some promising results around CBD as well. And there's a lot of products that are available all around the country. And so if you're looking for a CBD product, I would suggest looking for one that has a third-party laboratory tested results to make sure that there's no impurities and that the potency is as listed on the label. The different methods of consuming cannabis, there's the two most popular, which is inhaling or ingested. So looking at the effects that are listed on the chart, you can see that for inhalation, the effects are within seconds to a few minutes. And so if that's impacting the blood sugar, then that's the method of ingestion. Then it would be recommended to check the blood sugar before use and then after by about 15 minutes, and then again about 2 hours later to see how it's impacting the individual's blood sugar level. The ingestion method, you can see that the start of the effects are between 30 minutes to 2 hours, with the full effect taking a peak at 4 hours. And so again, the recommendation would be to check the blood sugar about 15 minutes prior to use. And then I would say check it again 4 to 6 hours after consumption. So those are just a few of the guidelines. To look at blood sugar, it's really helpful to know what is a typical range for the individual. It's also very helpful to know the factors that influence blood sugar outside of the cannabis use. So the activity level, the types of food being eaten, as well as any other medications being taken. And combining that information with what would be considered normal and healthy for that individual. So it's a information that can be used as a part of a blood sugar control method, but it's quite individualized at this time, and there's not a lot of research that has any specific guidelines on how. So these are just some things to keep in mind, but it's definitely an extremely interesting area of research, and there's going to be a lot more information to come. So it's totally exciting, and very much we need to keep our eyes on the next treatment options coming from that. So with that in mind, you can always make an appointment to see a health coach, myself, if you'd like. And our next webinar is going to be on March 29th, and we're going to be exploring the link between cannabis and hunger.
Thank you so much, Maria. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed. And yeah, like Maria said, if you're interested in learning more, please go ahead to leafydoc.com and you can you can book a one-on-one appointment with Maria to learn more. And yeah, we'll hopefully see you at webinar 3.